So I think we're going to introduce ourselves and then get into the mechanics of how do I get in. How many of you are high school students now? Lots. Great. So this is definitely aimed at your experience and helping you maximize that time before you apply to college. My name is Chris Jenkins. I'm an Associate Dean at Oberlin Conservatory. My title is Associate Dean for Academic Support, which means that I offer support to students who struggle academically. I'm not actually positioned so much on the entrance side of things, but I have a pretty good idea of what skills students need to generate to succeed once you actually get to school. I also work as a Deputy Title IX Coordinator and as a liaison to our Office of Equity and Diversity, so I deal with issues of race and ethnicity and gender in the conservatory environment. I also work internationally quite a bit. I lead a winter term project in Jordan with students, so if you're interested in that kind of work, I would love to talk to you about it.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Laura Hoffman, and I have the great privilege of being the Assistant Dean for Admissions and Enrollment Management at the University of Michigan, School of Music, Theater, and Dance. I've been there a good long while. I tell students I'm one of those grad students who never left. So I understand many of the aspects of this stage of your life, and we're looking forward to talking through all of these variables.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Joyce Griggs. I'm serving as the interim dean at the Cleveland Institute of Music. Prior to my arrival 15 months ago at that conservatory, I actually served for 15 years at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, so a school much more comparable to the University of Michigan. I am a practicing musician. My musical journey began when I was 4 years old, and my parents took me and my brothers and sister to a music store and said, pick out an instrument. So I picked the one that fit me, which was a violin. And then 10 years later, at the age of 10 rather, I fell in love with the saxophone when I heard it for the first time. And for 4 years, the two instruments competed, and finally at the age of 14, the saxophone won out. So through my career, I've taken lots of auditions, both for participating in competitions and placements in all state and honors bands and things like that, but then also for 3 degrees. So we really are trying to use our collective experiences, not just as practicing musicians, but also as professionals in this educational environment to help steer the conversation today. So we hope you enjoy our panel discussion, which will also include a robust question and answer session opportunity.
So I think we're going to run through a timeline of how to best prepare yourself and get into the school of your choice, starting with obviously the time before you actually apply. I think if you're a person who really wants to be a musician, this is something that you know from a relatively young age. So not so much 18 or 19 as 10, 11, 12 when you first start thinking about your career. So if that's you, then you ought to be thinking about going to music school. To actually start the process of preparation for the audition and the selection of school, the latest that this should begin really, in my opinion, is the fall of your junior year of high school. Any later than that, it becomes hard to actually make a good selection. It becomes hard to go through all the steps you need to help get you all the information that you want to make a good selection. So, junior fall, you should start thinking about what schools you might want to attend. And the most principal element you have to be thinking about, I think, is the instructor, the teacher with whom you'd like to study. I'd say that's right. There are some other factors, certainly like how far away you are from home, the expense of the school. Those things are certainly important. But the most important thing to help you develop as you need to in school is to select an instructor who really is a good fit for you. And the best way to do that is to take trial lessons with instructors. This can be difficult because it may involve travel, it may involve other expenses such as paying for a trial lesson. Usually instructors will help negotiate with you a lower cost for that kind of thing or provide one for free. But I would say, personally, I never applied to a school where I had not already taken a lesson with the teacher and knew that I wanted possibly to study with that person. So during your junior spring, especially spring break, this is a great time to make school visits, to actually go to the schools you think you might want to attend and see what the campus is like, see what the environment is like, to connect with the admissions department, which always is very eager to connect with potential students, to take some more trial lessons with teachers. And probably the process of actually preparing your repertoire should begin that fall, or rather that spring or that summer of your junior year going into your senior year. So you're going to want to look around online, see all the schools where you might apply, and draw up a list of repertoire with your current instructor so that you have a really solid idea of what you have to play. It's quite typical what you usually have to do for an audition. You have a concerto, usually some Bach, depending on your instruments, usually some other kind of piece, perhaps a showpiece. But it's incredibly important that you know what those things are that you'll have to prepare at least about a year in advance so you can start thinking about how to best prepare yourself. Many schools also require a pre-screening tape. Depends on your instrument, depends on the school, especially for violin, for piano. This is very common. So to that end, it actually is useful for you to start recording your recitals during that junior year. If you happen to come up with some really good material, you can use that. It's much easier than trying to cram a bunch of recording sessions during your senior fall when you're still very busy with school and you're trying to get ready for auditions. If you're accumulating material over time, it's a lot easier to put that tape together, that pre-screening tape, before you actually have to apply. So auditions tend to happen during the February, March, January of your senior spring, meaning that you want to make sure that your academic load is relatively light during that time if you can. If you have control over your course selection in your high school, it makes a lot of sense to try to load up courses during your junior spring and your senior fall so that during your actual senior spring of high school, you don't have too much academic work. This also goes for college students applying to grad school, right? If you have a ton of classes that you have to finish to graduate in your senior spring and you're taking auditions and you're flying all over the country, you're going to go a little bit crazy. So always keep your timeline in mind when you're positioning yourself to audition for grad school and for college. Let's see. I suppose also I should talk about development of socio-emotional and academic skills that you might need to succeed in conservatory. What I do principally is work with students who have academic issues. That is to say, they may excel musically, but they may not be prepared thoroughly for music theory, oral skills, music history, for writing intensive classes. So the better that you can actually prepare yourself before you get to school for those kinds of classes, the easier it'll be. Because of course in a conservatory environment, you want to spend most of your time practicing. That's just the way that it is in a conservatory, and that's useful. If you're really struggling with your academic load, that's going to be hard. That will take some time away from your studies. If you end up not passing certain classes, that will set you back and cause a great deal of stress and anxiety and make it hard to focus on your music, which is what you're there to do. So insofar as you can take theory classes in high school, take music history classes in high school, even courses that are online, to best prepare yourself to get through, the easier it'll be once you actually get to school. And there are certain coping mechanisms I think that are quite important to have. It's definitely important to have spent some time at a summer music festival, if you can, that is away from home, so that college is not your first away from home experience. Being away from home is incredibly important for young adults to help generate coping skills that you'll need to be by yourself. You know, in college you'll encounter challenges that you've never faced before, and when you do that, you'll be often alone in a way that you've never been, and that can be very challenging for young students. That also is what it means to be an adult. So college is an important part of maturing and becoming an adult and learning how you're going to be as an adult person. But the better you can prepare yourself for those challenges and for dealing with situations on your own, the easier it'll be to succeed once you actually get to school.
Sounds good. So let's pull on one of those threads a little bit further. How many of you in researching schools and teachers have thought about the difference between a conservatory setting and a university setting? You should. So those of you who haven't yet raised your hand, let's talk about a little bit more about that. Because I think for a lot of folks, you start looking at teachers, right? You're asking your current teacher, your orchestra director, folks you know, who are good teachers potentially for me. So you start with that, but then they teach somewhere. So you have to figure out, well, do they teach at a place I would like to go? So what's the difference between a conservatory and a university? A university is going to give you, in many cases, the exact same rigor, musical intensity, studies in your major that a conservatory would. They will also be interested in you as an academic person, as a student who has interest in the world around them. So if you're somebody who loves your music, adores what you're doing musically, but is also equally interested in the world around you, you love school, or you have a couple subjects at school that you love the most, maybe one that's not your favorite, but you have interest in liberal arts study, then a university might be a really good fit for you, because it will let you do all of those things concurrently in a way that's structured nicely, and something you could easily manage. On the other hand, if you're a person who adores your music and really doesn't like all the time you spend in your math or science or English, and you really don't see that being an important part of your life in the college environment, then the conservatory setting might be the better fit. Because what you want is to find yourself in a school where they give you the degree requirements and you go, oh, this all looks fabulous. I can't wait to tackle these courses. Because then you're going to have some fun while you're doing it. Universities are very interested in folks who have interest in the world around them. But there's another myth that kind of goes around in musical circles, that, well, your playing is really what matters. Grades won't matter. How many of you believe that's true? Oh, you are very smart. Grades always matter. So those of you who are young, 9th grade, 10th grade, or even younger, doing well in school matters. Study hard, do your best work, give your best every day at school, just like you give your best in the studio, in the practice room, in your lessons, because it demonstrates not only that you have self-discipline, that you are a hard worker, but that you know how to engage with topics that are unfamiliar to you, which we all understand is part of what life is about, right? How do I engage? Some of the things that you'll do as a musician involve working outside of your comfort zone. So engaging in school, learning how to study, learning how to write, so that you can really communicate your ideas to others. It's absolutely the right thing to do, and you can do it in the same earnestness as you do your practicing and so forth, okay? All right, so that's part of the research component. So let's say you have, we're gonna fast forward here in the interest of time, right? You've done all this good research, you've been practicing like crazy, you have some recordings that you're proud of, tucked away for pre-screening and whatnot. Now it's time to apply. And you've settled on a chart, and I'm gonna encourage all the students, you have to communicate with those in your family who are gonna support you through this application process. So maybe that's a chart that gets posted on the refrigerator or something that everybody can share and look at. Maybe it's another way, maybe it's a Google Doc, whatever works in your family. But put it together, be organized, and keep track of things so that everybody in the house knows what's going on, right? Most music schools have an application deadline of December 1st of your senior year. As many of you know, probably from high school guidance counselors, the Common App, which a variety of schools use, opens August 1st. Many other music schools that don't use the Common App, their applications begin 1st of September. So you have all of that fall semester to kind of get it together and get your materials in. But it's essential that you do so. Late applications and, straggling in after the fact saying, oh, but I didn't know, isn't in your best interest. Sometimes exceptions can still be made, but it's never in your best interest. So get it together, right? Get your materials in by that December 1st deadline. And then you're right in line to have auditions in January and February and go from there, okay?
Great. So now you're on the audition day. How many of you are seniors right now? Maybe taking auditions this year? Okay. And of those hands that went up, how many of you have at least done one audition already? Oh, good. Okay.
You're smiling, you're happy.
I know, that's great.
They're good.
That's great. So one of the things that's a little unique about a college audition versus maybe a competition audition is that typically you're going to have a full day, something that is more programmatic for you, rather than just the 10 or 15-minute slot that you may have with the competition. And part of that is so that you have an opportunity to see the school in action. Many schools will have a performance as part of their audition day where you get to hear students of that school perform. I know Michigan did that last night, and CIM does that.
Faculty showcase. Yeah.
So students, faculty might be able to hear them. The other is, you know, in thinking about this, just understanding that you're going to have a number of things that you're called upon to do that day that are in addition to the audition itself. So one of the things that you may find helpful is making sure you have a conversation with the admissions office before you arrive and say, even if you can't tell me the exact time when my audition may be, can you at least tell me what are going to be the expectations of me on that day? So they can talk you through everything from the check-in experience to whether or not you're going to have an exam in music theory or ear training, if there will be a performance opportunity or an opportunity to have a question and answer session with some of the faculty and the staff or the students. And then the audition, understand how long it is. Is it typical that the audition lasts for 10 minutes or is it a 30-minute audition? Just so that you can be mentally preparing yourself for what that day will look like. One of the other helpful things you may wish to do is to just acknowledge and accept that you might experience the unexpected. When I went to audition for graduate schools, I attended 5 different auditions all over the country, and one of the things that I wasn't expecting at the time was that parts of Indiana would be on different time zones. But that was one of the things that actually was true when I was auditioning for grad schools. And so when I drove to the airport, I realized as I was walking up to the gate and the door was shutting, and I was trying to get to an audition in Texas, that I then had to rearrange my flights and do all of these extra things, that on the day of my audition, because I was flying in on the same day, which is probably a huge no-no, I would recommend going the day before, but just to expect the unexpected, even down to things like the audition room might be running a half hour late, or it might be running 10 minutes early. So when you also find out when is your audition time, if you have someone who's with you, maybe let them wear that stress of just checking and monitoring what the room time is to see, are they on time, are they late, are they early, just so that you don't have to be the one pacing back and forth while you're waiting for that. The other things that I would ask are, if you're going to have someone who's accompanying you, don't let them stress you out. If you are, I've spoken to a lot of parents who will say this to me, I think I'm more nervous than my daughter is. That's probably true. So as a parent, you're probably going to wear more of the emotions because us as the musicians have been through an audition experience a number of times. So for the parents or the people who might be accompanying the students, take something with you to do. Bring a book. A lot of times you'll get a packet of materials so that you can have something to read. And then the other thing would be ask where the local coffee shop is, because sometimes you just want to sort of clear your space so that you can let your son or daughter have the best experience that they can have. And then lastly, the one other thing that I would say is for the auditioning students, you want to find a place of power in this process. Because so often when you're auditioning, It's realizing or recognizing that decisions are being made about you and for you. And so it's hard to sometimes see, well, what are the things that you actually have control over? And we're going to talk about that when it comes to the decision-making process. But on the day of the audition, this could be one of the most grounding, centering mindsets that you can place yourself in. And that is that this is as much an opportunity for the school to audition you as it is for the school, for you to audition the school. So from the moment you walk into the school, what is that environment? Not just from compartmentalizing it into a university versus a conservatory, but what are the sensibilities of that school? What kind of energy are you experiencing when you walk in, despite your own nerves, if you can just take a deep breath and say, how do the students here greet me? What is my interaction with the faculty and the staff who are helping me through this audition day? Because this is a place where, as a high school student, you're going to spend 4 years of your life. And if you're a graduate student, at least 2 years of your life. And so what is that chemistry when you're there? What do the facilities look like? What's the proximity of the places where you're going to spend the majority of your time, which are practice rooms and studios and classroom spaces? What's the proximity of that to the other resources that you may want to explore as a student? Be it the most common things like the residence hall where you're going to live, to if you like to exercise as one of your mental releases and physical outlets, where are those things in proximity to where you're having your audition or where you're going to have most of your classes and things like that? So just make sure that you use this time to really explore and think about, is this a place? We've talked about fit now a few different ways, but on that particular day, it can also be a really centering opportunity for you. And I will also say that the more auditions you take, the better you get at knowing yourself and what helps you create that mental capacity for walking across the threshold of the door for the audition and being able to say, I know I'm going to do my best. All of this preparation that I've done leading up to this moment, I'm going to be able to showcase myself in the best possible light despite the unexpected happening or despite the room running 30 minutes late, because I've done my pre-audition routine. So if you don't have a pre-audition routine yet, one of the things I would encourage you to think about is, what is the kind of space, physical and mental, that you thrive in and know if you have that moment before the audition experience itself, that you're likely going to be able to present yourself in the best possible way through the audition. So for some individuals that might be find a quiet space and meditate. For other students it might be looking at the score and sort of mentally singing through the passages even though you're not physically playing the instrument. And for other people it might be like what Michael Phelps does before a big race and you actually listen to rap music. Whatever it is that you need to do to prepare yourself so that when you're in the moment, you can be at your optimal performance level. Those are the things that make up your pre-audition preparation, and that's something that's so individualized, but I would certainly encourage all of you to think about that and intentionally design it so that you can have the best experience possible.
Let me add one thing to that. When you walk into an audition for a school, you're auditioning for an education. It's different than when you're auditioning for a competition. Competition, they're looking for reasons to eliminate, right? For an education, those teachers, those faculty, they want you to be good. They're pulling for you. They're hoping you're going to hit it out of the park. So as you walk into that room, you can take a deep breath. All right, this is a positive space. There's good karma in the room. These people are pulling for me. Mm-hmm. So relax and just be your musical best. Let them hear why you love to play, sing, do. Let that musicality out. If there's a technical oops or something that doesn't go quite the way you had rehearsed it, if you're auditioning for a competition, that could be it. If you're auditioning for a school, that's not necessarily a big deal because they're interested in your overall musicianship, your work ethic, how you communicate your music making. So let it go. If there's a missed note, moving right on. Don't let it bother you. And let your spirit out. Let them hear why you love to do it. That will win the day more times than you can count.
Yeah.
So talking about actually making a decision once you've been accepted. This is obviously a very difficult decision, especially in these times when schools are typically very expensive. In my mind, and I'm sure my colleagues have some other thoughts, but in my mind, the only two things that matter the most are your fit with the teacher and the financial package that you receive, especially whether or not you're able to get the school, to induce the school to give you a bit more aid. There are many schools that do what's called meeting need. What this often means is that you receive a certain fixed amount of merit scholarship, and whatever is remaining between your merit scholarship, what your family can pay, and the actual cost of tuition is filled with loans. So I think students typically don't really get a great understanding of what kinds of loans they're taking out, what the terms of repayment actually are, and it's incredibly important that you spend time with the admissions office, with the financial aid office, understanding exactly what you're being offered before you sign anything. I work certainly with students who have taken out packages when I realized they did not truly understand exactly what they were signing. They didn't understand that, I believe 9 months after graduation, their loans would have to be repaid at a monthly rate. They didn't understand what that number was. It's really incumbent upon you and your families to make sure you have a very clear understanding of what you're signing, how much money you're taking out, and how this is going to impact you financially graduating, especially as a musician. Because if you're going to graduate, say, in jazz percussion or viola, and be having to pay back $500, $600, $700 a month once you graduate, that's going to be very, very difficult, and you have to know exactly what it is that you're getting into before you do that. That being said, I would say the fit with the teacher, your financial package, also certainly the course of study that is actually offered by the school. Most conservatories have a generally similar course of study, but you should know exactly what it is, what's going to be required of you. Do you have to take 8 semesters of orchestra, for example? Do you have to take 2 years of music theory or 3 years of music theory? How much music history do you have to take? Is that something that is suitable for you academically that you know you can succeed in? Those are really important details to know before you actually sign up and decide that you're going to go somewhere for sure.
I think this is one of the areas where it's essential, students, that you are communicating freely and openly with those in your family who are supporting your process. Because financial aid may be unfamiliar to you, but probably a parent or somebody else in the house that's helping you will have some more experience, and this is vital. So oftentimes when an admission decision is made, first thing you have to know is if we offer you a spot, it's with the full confidence that you can do the program. So you take that and absorb that. All right, I have achieved already here a big measure of success, and they've offered me a coveted spot in a program in a school. So be warm with that, love that, because that's a real accomplishment. And it shows that the school wants you to join their community. Sometimes students have said to me, well, if there isn't a big scholarship, or the scholarship tells me how much the school really wants me. That isn't always the case. And I ask you to just consider the notion that being offered a place in any of the competitive schools in the country, because there's lots of good programs, is an accomplishment and a measure of how much that school would like you to join their community, or they wouldn't have offered it to you. So then a lot of times financial aid can become a reflection of how do we make this education that we've offered you accessible so that you can take advantage of this. I'm the first one in my family to go to college and graduate. I had no clue when I was your age how this all worked. It would have helped a lot, but I worked my way through, right? It's no longer possible for a young person to work and pay for school all on their own if you're going to one of the major schools of music. You're going to need help. So how do you do that? You have to apply for every kind of assistance that's available to you. You throw your hat in for everything. So whether that's auditioning for competitions, whether that's filling out some scholarship forms and writing some essays for the local Kiwanis Club or the school in your neighborhood or an alumni club, you do all of that and you don't complain. You write the essay, you get it done. And as a family, you also do FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. How many of you already know about that? Oh, I love it, you're smart. And for many schools, the CSS profile. That's the one that's on the College Board website. So you throw your hat in for everything, because in the end, what you want is, round about the 1st of April of your senior year, to be able to say, all right, kitchen table, I have these offers of admission, and I have these financial packages. Now, what's the best fit for me and my family? So I have a slightly different take. I don't think the financial package is the second most important thing. It's important, and for many, many families, it's big. But the most important thing is that relationship with the teacher and the education, the curriculum that you would get to do, and the fit within the overall institution. Because many of us start school thinking one thing and end up doing something a little different. So I said, I'm the first one in my family to graduate from college. And I started college thinking I was going to be a music ed major. I played piano and cello. Recreationally, I wasn't terribly good. And a math major. And I got going, and I could do that college calculus, but why? I didn't like it. So that all changed. So you work your way through it, right? I came to Michigan to do grad work in musicology, thought I wanted to write scholarly papers and be a professor and all of that, and got in there, realized the library is a lovely spot, but it's really quiet, and I'm a people person, so that wasn't the fit I thought it would be. And I was a grad student paying my own way, so I got a work-study job. My work-study job was in the office I now run. Life took a turn. So you think about, well, where am I going to place myself for 4 years? And the whole environment matters. So you think about that teacher, you think about the education, the reputation of that school. All right, if I'm going to graduate and I have a degree from such and such, how is that going to serve me long term? When I put that on my resume with a lot of pride, how is that going to serve me long term? Now, back to that money picture, how do I make this possible for me and my family? And yeah, you got to look at all those details. So financial aid often comes in the form of two things: gift aid and self-help. So he was talking about some of the self-help components, that loan package, work study, and you can tell I'm a big fan of the work study. Y'all can do a 10-hour-a-week job, get a paycheck every 2 weeks, and help defray some of your costs, right? You can do that. And then gift aid. And those are the awards where you say thank you and go to class and get good grades and practice and be a part of the artistic community that you're in. But that gift aid plus self-help aid is how most schools are putting it together to make sure that you and your family can afford to go. And he's absolutely right. If you get these offers all laid out and you realize, the school I would most love to attend isn't financially in our realm right now. It's not accessible. We can't do it. You call up. You talk to the people with whom you've already built relationships. So the admissions folks, the academic dean, the faculty member, you talk to those people and say, I really want to come to your school. This is my first choice. but we can't quite, we can't quite swing it financially. Is there any additional help that we could look at? Are there any other scholarships I could apply for? But you have a communication about it. And that's oftentimes how you can work out the best. Simply choosing the school that gives you the most money may not, it could, but it may not get you to the place you belong. So that early research, now it's circled back. Where's the best fit? Where's the chemistry? Where do I belong?
I'll just echo a few things, but very briefly. One is absolutely think about where you're going to get the best education.
Yeah.
I was one of those people who had the package that offered everything and only a small slice of something. And I chose the small slice of something because I knew that that was the place where I was going to grow the most and where I was going to be pushed to become a better musician, become a better person, become a well-rounded individual. And it was a choice that also took me away from my family. I was the first person not to go to school at college, but the first person who chose to go away from home for college. So that was another big discussion point with my mom especially. A lot of this, though, is really about, again, how you are helping yourself. And one of the things we want to make sure is that any of the collective information that we have to offer today and that we've seen over our decades of work, that we can be most helpful to you with the questions that you have. So we really did want to spend the time opening this up now and having a Q&A discussion.
Right. So I think in the last session, they asked folks who have a question to come to the microphone so that the videographer can capture your lovely face and we can all hear. So come on around and let's have some fun here. There she goes.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I just have a question specifically for Ms. Joyce. My number one school is CIM. So I just wanted to know like a couple things about like the application stuff for there, and then also like the live auditions and stuff.
Sure. So are you a senior now?
I'm a junior.
Remember. Okay, I didn't think I saw your name. I would just say take all of the advice we've been giving. Our faculty are very accessible. And whether you feel comfortable directly reaching out to faculty or you want to utilize the admissions office to help facilitate the trial lesson, come for a visit. Make sure that you have an opportunity to work with the faculty. At our school, many of the faculty also perform in a big orchestra. And so we can oftentimes help prospective students gain tickets to see a performance. And just come and visit. We have the December 1st deadline that Laura mentioned a few minutes ago. And depending on the instrument, we have pre-screening for some, but not everything. So the website is a really great first place to explore, but come and visit.
I also have one more question. This one's for all of you all. Oh, wait, I forgot for a second. Oh, yes. So I want to go into chamber music, but then I'm not quite sure how many schools have an undergraduate chamber music program. So I was wondering if should I just go into viola performance for undergraduate and then worry about chamber music now, or should I just go and find a place that has a chamber music undergrad and then find out where I want to go from there?
I think you're going to find that every major music school that offers a performance program offers a vibrant chamber music community. So whether the title of the degree says chamber music or performance would be less important than how much activity is going on at the school. So you can ask a lot of questions about that, you can investigate that, you can talk to the teachers and find out. I don't think it would be essential that you focus on the title of the degree as much as what would I get to do in this program.
Yeah, all programs for conservatories will generally offer similar courses of study involving chamber music in terms of string quartets and these kinds of things, and the number of semesters you have to take those classes. That being said, schools have different reputations at different times, and these change also, these shift over time. for producing really high quality string quartets at a certain time versus producing really high quality orchestral players or both sometimes. So this is where going to a summer festival is really important because there's buzz about different programs, right? What new hot quartet that just won a competition came out of X, Y, and Z school. Sometimes schools get into a zone where they start generating quartets for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And that can sort of come and go. And so knowing what schools are best for those skills is actually very important.
Okay, thank
I
you.
think he also raised another great tangent point, that first-hand information is always the most reliable, right? So your friend of a friend said blah, blah, blah. You go verify. Let's ask that question myself and find out what's really so, okay? Because as he said, things change. Great, thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jared Stone. I'm a high school senior currently. You talked about it a little bit earlier, but I'm wondering for a university versus a conservatory, how obviously some university music schools function basically as conservatories, but how do the non-musical requirements compare? Like, are there more academic courses that you have to take in a university as compared to a conservatory because they are, after all, still a university? They're not in this category of music, fine arts.
Sure, sometimes that's the case. And my colleagues will jump in here. For example, at Michigan, if you're in a performance program, a Bachelor of Music program, you would do 75% of your work in professional music studies, 25% of your work in the category I affectionately call be an educated human being. What's lovely is that, different from when many of the parents in the room and I were in school, where there were all sorts of general education classes that someone else decided were good for you, like broccoli, and you had to work your way through. Many schools now say, well, yes, we want you to be an educated person, but you may choose what you're interested in studying. So maybe a couple writing classes so that, again, those communication skills get built. But the rest of what you take is free choice. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm in the 7th grade, and what should I be doing right now to start getting ready for college?
Your homework.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Irina, and in general, for the like application process, do conservatories look at academic grades the same as universities do, or not?
We certainly consider them. We do have a minimum grade point average that we're looking for. We want to see a collection of coursework that is broad across the requirements for the high school. And we don't want to see red flags, because to one of the earlier points in the presentation piece, one of the things that having grades that are consistent across all the academic areas, as much as possible, understanding that some of you may have a weakness for calculus, but those consistent grades are really important. Also, the upward trajectory. So recognizing that it may take students a semester or two to get acclimated to high school, so the freshman grades may be a little bit lesser than what we see in the junior and senior year. But if we see an overall upward trajectory, that just means you're starting to figure out the life piece of being in high school and balancing your musical interests along with the academic interests.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Linton Robinson, and I'm a freshman in college, and I wanted to know how you guys felt about double majors in college and the workload.
We actually, at Oberlin, we have what's called a dual degree program because we have a liberal arts college and a conservatory side by side. So we have a number of students who are literally dual degree, earning both, which is similar to double majoring in college. I think if you're going to do that, it's important to pick an institution where it's set up well, where you can also complete both requirements. I believe CIM has a very similar kind of program with Case Western. Just make sure that if you look at the course of study, that it's something that you can actually complete, right? That there aren't classes that overlap at certain times where you just can't take something, where you have to be in school for 6 years to finish your requirements. Be really sure that the course of study actually physically works for you. That being said, if you have the academic preparation to do it and the musical chops to do it, it's totally possible. But you have to think really carefully about whether it's going to jeopardize your chances for success in either realm.
We absolutely offer the dual degree. I probably have 20% of my undergrads that are doing it, so you wouldn't be the weird person for choosing this. I think good academic advising is essential to doing a dual degree. Also, for those of you who are in high school or going to high school, taking some of the most rigorous classes at your school, if you have the option to take AP classes, and I know this is not your circumstance, but for the benefit of those younger, to bring in some AP credits maybe can give you even more of an opportunity to do a dual degree. But never shy away from studying what you're interested in. You just never know where life will take you.
The main concern is the second major I would pursue is performance, and the first would be music therapy. But I wanted to know if it was kind of necessary to get the performance degree, because I just want to play and I want the lessons and I just want to improve on my instrument. But I don't. Do you think it's necessary, or yeah?
I think it really just sit down with those two curricular programs and see what would you be missing from your education from a performance standpoint, because music therapy is going to have a lot of the anatomy and other physiological type of courses, whereas the performance is going to have additional history, music theory, aspects where you're taking the application of the practice and putting it into a more academic setting. And so those would maybe be the places where you would see gaps. Okay.
Thank you.
You're
Think
welcome.
about, too, what you can imagine yourself doing down the road. And if part of that imagination is working in music therapy, but being a player, no matter if I have my career in this other area, that may help you choose what you want to do.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dana, and I'm a junior in high school. I had a question concerning what kind of scholarships can I get that are not from the school but can benefit going to college? And how can I get those?
Yeah. You want to do or?
There are a couple of websites that, if you don't know about them, you may want to look at now. One is called scholarships.com, and the other is fastweb.com. These are two good repositories of they're essentially databases where you can put in your profile where you're thinking about going to school, and it will generate a list of scholarship applications from everything from the local Kiwanis to more national or state-wide scholarships. I have seen students be incredibly savvy in packaging a number of these separate, discrete scholarships that are not institutionally tied, and then it can help supplement anything you may be getting from an institution, covering living expenses, books. It might even fund study abroad. So there's lots of ways that you can tie these scholarships to the cost of your education.
There's several big national ones that Ms. Griggs referred to. I had a student not so long ago who was convinced he would not be able to afford to come to college anywhere, let alone Michigan. But he had thrown his hat in for the Gates Scholarship, the big national one, and it was in April of his senior year that he found out that he got it, and it changed his life. So never underestimate your capacity for something sensational. Throw your hat in for everything, and if you meet the criteria for big national scholarships like that, apply.
And I always say, I mean, if you just even want to drill down to the economics of it, a $10,000 scholarship with about 30 hours of investigation and writing and editing essays and things like that is well worth a week of your life to then help offset the cost.
Yeah. $10,000 scholarship at a lot of schools pays for room and board.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one big item off my list. Check.
Yep.
No, it's worth it. That $500 scholarship that you were crying about writing another essay for, that buys your books. You know, equate it to items in the budget? Great question.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cameron, and I'm a junior in high school right now. So I've been taking a lot of college courses, like with dual enrollment. Could this potentially like limit my scholarship opportunities? I mean, I'm looking more into conservatories, but could the detriment? No.
I don't think so. One thing to consider is that if you're taking dual enrollment classes at a college, that typically, I know at least for us, we don't count them then as transfer credits. So you can't actually get ahead of your studies, but you can at least be more prepared. I think most schools would like to see that kind of thing, and if anything, it would enhance your scholarship opportunities rather than limit them. So.
Yeah, you're learning a lot through those courses, and that's always going to be an attractive feature to any school. The transfer credit option varies school to school a little bit. We will take some of those with a couple little caveats. So you're always doing yourself a favor by learning more and presenting a strong application that way. Good for you.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? Question?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment.
All right.
What I would say. I'm obviously past the point of applying for college, although I have students who are applying for college. And when you take trial lessons, let's say you're applying at 5 schools and you're taking trial lessons, what you need to think of is all these 5 people, the teachers that you're applying for, are fantastic. And you have only one life. And so let's say all 5 schools accept you and give you a full scholarship. You can't possibly go to all 5 schools. So when you see someone for a trial lesson, no matter who it is or what, this might be the last time you ever see that person. And they're great. So suck up every bit of information you can get, because that information will come back and help you. You don't know when. I mean, now, at my age, I remember stuff that I learned from somebody that I didn't see much when I was 17 years old. And I thought, oh gosh, I've heard that before, so-and-so told me. And so when you're taking a trial lesson, you're auditioning them and they're auditioning you, but you're also learning. And don't forget that. You're there to get what he's got or she's got to give you, and possibly you'll never see them again. And so take advantage of it, that's all.
Yeah. And write thank you notes. Right? Remember what your mother and your grandma and the other people taught you? Write a little thank you note anytime you get a lesson from a teacher that you're visiting.
I think we have time for one more question from Michelle.
Sorry, I have a lot of
That's
questions. So I wanted to have more of a conservatory life, but then I'm also really interested in like psychology and stuff like that. So I'm not sure whether I should try to pursue some universities, that way I can take that course, but then I also want to have more of a conservatory life. So what would be some advice for that?
I think just looking at the curriculum, seeing how broad it is, how many options for choices you have, and what perhaps you're willing to take on that might exceed what the minimum course load that's required for the curriculum is, and thinking about if that's a balance that you would enjoy pursuing. It's possible I think at all 3 of our institutions and most, that you can take classes outside of your major, and it's just a matter of how you construct that and whether it's truly just elective credits that you're earning or if it counts towards the ultimate degree. But those would be individual questions to have, and then when you go back to that chart that helps you keep track of where you're applying, you may even want to have a notes section where this would be one of those discrete opportunities that you keep track of for yourself, so you know which school is going to help facilitate it, in what way could it be packaged with a minor, a double major, or just something that you choose to take. And that will all become part of those facts that you gather, so when you make the decision, you're making the most informed decision you can make.
And Oberlin and CIM both are connected with the university, right? So if I went to one of those, then I'd be able to take classes there, right?
All three of our schools
Yeah.
offer that.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
I think that's all the time that we have for now, but thanks so much for coming, and we're all still going to stick around and answer questions if you'd like after the session. Thanks.
Thank you all for coming.